Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you here today. Uh, my name is Deepak Chopra. I'm the founder of Art, the Art of Health. Uh, and it gives me immense pleasure, and it's a complete honor of mine to invite you at the very prestigious Nehru Center for an extraordinary conversation with Dr. Deepak Chopra on conscious living. Our guest tonight really needs no introduction. When the Nehru Center first published this event almost a week back on its digital channels, we ran out of tickets in almost less than an hour. With his visionary insights and transformative wisdom, Dr. Chopra has touched the lives of millions around the world. He's been a trailblazer in bridging the gap between ancient wisdom and modern science and spirituality, empowering individuals to tap into their infinite potential. As an integrative medicine doctor, pioneer of the wellness world, and a thought leader, he's reshaped our understanding of mind-body healing and consciousness. As someone who's had the pleasure of attending several other talks by Dr. Deepak Chopra, all I can say is prepare to be inspired, transcend limitations, and to embrace a new way of living. May I please now invite on stage our chief guest for the evening, His Excellency High Commissioner of India to the UK, Vikram Dorai Swamiji, to please come and address the audience.
Thank you very much. I'm conscious of the fact that I'm not the chief guest. I'm part of the organizers here under the stewardship of the very able director of our cultural center, Amish Tripathi, an author in his own right, with an equally modest publishing resume of some 7 million copies of his books on print. Dr. Chopra, it's a great pleasure to be able to welcome you here. I've had the distinct honor of being able to welcome you once before in my career when I was ambassador in South Korea some 6 years ago. And all I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is you have, of course, seen him on YouTube, and I'm sure you've seen his videos of his lectures. But in person, it is at least 10 times more impactful. You will absolutely enjoy what he has to offer to you. In particular, the sense of the totality of the experience of wellness. Most of us dabble with bits of it for our own physical health. You go for a morning run, you have a schedule of the day, but putting it all together and explaining it coherently, rationally, logically, in a way that actually offers you empirical evidence is really Dr. Chopra's specialty. And it is really one of the pleasures of life to be able to recognize how all the pieces come together. Dr. Chopra will lead you to that. And we are delighted in the High Commission family team, in particular at the Nehru Center, to welcome friends to this Sunday special. Thank you so much, Nehru Center. Thank you for being here, Dr. Chopra. And thank you for the opportunity to start you.
Thank you, sir. May I please now invite on stage Dr. Deepak Chopra for a conversation with Amish Tripathi, Director of Nehru Center, Minister in charge of Culture and Education, High Commissioner of India to the UK, and one of India's most acclaimed and prolific authors, Amish Tripathi. Dr. Deepak Chopra.
Sorry guys, just in In the old Doordarshan days, we used to say technical रुकावट के लिए खेद है. Just a Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me at the back? Yeah? All right, lovely. This is probably by far the biggest event we've ever had at the Nehru Center. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Deepak Chopra. And for those who may not be aware, we got so many registrations that we had to open the art gallery below. And there's a simultaneous broadcast taking place of this event downstairs, where there are another equally large number of people sitting out there. Yeah. How many of you have come to the Nehru Center for the first time?
Few.
Okay.
They are regulars.
So those who've come for the first time, you've actually just entered sovereign Indian territory. Welcome to India. Deepak, if I may begin with, because the subject that we wanted to discuss was consciousness and living, conscious living. And this is one of the things that you've explored so deeply. And it's there in the Vedas as well, mobile phone nishidam. This is one of the things you've explored so deeply. And modern science gives more weightage to intelligence rather than consciousness. Are they the same? Are they different? Are they actually in opposition to each other? Can they work in partnership? What do you think, and what do ancient Indian traditions say?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here. Thank you, Excellency, and thank you, Ritika, for having me here. Thanks, everyone, for joining this conversation. Let me answer that question with a little experience you can give it. So, let me ask all of you, are you looking forward to this conversation? Yes. Little more enthusiasm. Yes. Let me ask you the same question, and please listen to my instruction very carefully. Let me ask you the same question, but do not answer it until I raise my hand. Is that clear? And then you can be as enthusiastic as before. Are you looking forward to this conversation? Yes. So the question is a mental event. The answer is a mental event. In between is consciousness, which is not a mental event. What you experienced just now, between the question and the answer, is consciousness, which is not a mental event. Although the mental event is a modified form of consciousness. Has to be. Consciousness modifies itself into the experience that we call mind. But normally we think of mind as the subject of experience, which is not Vedantic at all. If you understand Vedanta, the mind is an object of experience. Okay, so if you read the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, I believe, where Krishna talks about I am the field and I am the knower of the field. So the field is Kshetra, and the knower of the field is Kshetrajya, the knower of the field. The field by itself is without form. Otherwise you'll be able to see it. It has no form. Having no form, it has no borders. Everything that you see has a border. Every perception has a border. But something that doesn't have a border, by definition, is infinite. And what we call the human mind is a modified, finite, momentary, transient, ephemeral, ungraspable experience in that infinite, non-local mind, which is outside of space-time. So, where is this experience happening right now? This experience of you seeing me, where is it happening? If you say it's happening in your eyes, then you're wrong, because your eyes are 2.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters. By the time light enters your eyes, goes through a lens, gets inverted, crosses over, goes to the retina, which is curved. So if you're actually having the experience of seeing me in your eyes, you should see two of me about this size, upside down and curved. It's not happening there. He pointed out that it's happening here. This is 10 centimeters by 14 centimeters by 12 centimeters approximately. How does this room fit into here? Okay, how does all this, how does the Milky Way galaxy fit into here? So that's another wrong concept. Right now, what we call science is based on a philosophy called naive realism. Naive realism is very useful because we can create technology out of it. We do live stream, internet, all the technology, everything from jet planes to intergalactic probes. So that science is very effective, but does it lead us to truth? And I think the answer is no. Naive realism, first of all, assumes that what we call matter is the ontological primitive, which means matter is the basis of everything. If matter was the basis of everything, then how do atoms, molecules, force fields, gravity produce what we call thought, or feelings, or emotions, or imagination, or intuition, or creativity, or inspiration, or transcendence? Naive realism also is based on subject-object split. I am here, everything else is over there, which is again a perceptual illusion. Naive realism is also based on the idea that the look of the world is the human look of the world only, and we call it the objective universe. But what about other species? A snake that navigates experience through infrared, or a butterfly that knows the world through ultraviolet, or a bat that experiences the echo of ultrasound. So naive realism makes assumptions that are not true, but it works for technology, and so we assume that science is the answer. So science, to answer your original question, especially now with AI, is a very super intelligent system that combines different languages, biological language, mathematical language, physics language, and now, all kinds of language, including musical language and art language. It combines them to create a super intelligent system that is unconscious. It doesn't have longing or aspiration or existential dilemmas or address it has no subjective experience.
Then how it appears to me, from what you're saying, there is a reality. And there are the limitations of our perception of that reality. And we somehow try to fit that into terms that we can understand, that our mind can understand. Am I understanding this correctly? Okay. So if that is so, then what is a wiser way to live? Is it that I try and understand within my perceptions as best as I can, so that I lead a peaceful life? Or do I try and understand the bigger reality, which for many people may be a very difficult journey? Right? I don't know how many would want to see infrared and ultraviolet. Those are the limits of our
But by the way,
vision.
we will be able to do that with the AR
Yeah, okay.
and all that, so that will not be a limitation. But here's the essential question. What is reality? And I think anyone who has even a brief understanding of the teachings of Vedanta and Kashmir Shaivism and the non-dual traditions of the world, Advaita, will understand what has been said perennially, including by Adi Shankara. If you can see it, if you can touch it, if you can taste it, if you can smell it, if you can perceive it, if you can imagine it, then it's not real. The only thing that is real is inconceivable and not perceivable, and it's you. That is reality. It's formless, it's fundamental, it's infinite, it's creative, it's self-evolving, it's self-creating, self-regulating. And when we say conscious living is without thought. It is spontaneous. Now, if we want to talk about terms used in Vedanta, then you can use terms like Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Ananda Shakti, Jnana Shakti, which are modified forms again of consciousness, but they're spontaneous. So conscious living is spontaneous living without the burden of memory and without the anticipation of the future. It's right now. If I ask you, are you aware right now? And you turn to that which is listening while you're listening to me. As you're listening to me, you turn to that which is listening. Then you don't have to worry about what choice you make. It's actually what Krishnamurti called choiceless awareness. In that choiceless awareness is spontaneity. And that spontaneity is highly conscious because it's not burdened by what we would in ordinary language call karma. You know, people have a lot of misunderstanding about karma in general. Karma is just memory. And it's not just memory, it is the interpretation of memory. So we are burdened by the interpretation of past stories which don't exist at the moment. You say, does the past exist? It doesn't, except as a thought. So it interferes with our spontaneity. Conscious living is without anticipation, without regret, in this moment, spontaneously coming from a little gap of silence in between every experience. So in between every experience, doesn't matter what the experience is. And all experience by definition is a sensation. So it's a modified form of consciousness. Breathing is an experience. Thought is an experience. Perception is an experience. But what is the source of the experience? It's silent. So if you go back to that source, you have what I think the term choiceless awareness or the highest intelligence being the ability to observe yourself without judging yourself, gives you spontaneity. That's consciousness. It leads to all those things we talked about, which I hope you understand.
From Kashmir, there is others. And a question that emerges from this is that if there's a model of reality which our intelligence kind of forces us into, what are the steps that one has to take to experience true reality? It almost seems like intelligence will help you, but only up to a point. And then you need to surrender it. How does one do that? It seems like jumping without a safety net.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. So, I quoted chapter 13, Krishna, Sankhya, but Sankhya, there are other elaborations of that. And there are at least 24 modes of knowing in Sankhya. So the first mode of knowing is the mind. and the second is the intellect, one is the ego. Then it progresses from there, all the modes of knowing. There's several, yes, 24 modes of knowing. And those modes of knowing are all modified forms of consciousness. So, how do we experience reality? And the simplest way is yoga. If you understand yoga, and of course we have Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti
Bhakti
Yoga,
yoga.
but let's stick with one, and that is Raj Yoga, as described by Patanjali. So Patanjali describes 8 steps to reality. I mean, he starts off very simply. First chapter, second verse, Yog Chit Vritti Nirod. That's it. But how do you get that? Okay, Yog, everybody knows what vrittis are. Vrittis are sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, fluctuations of consciousness that we use to create models of reality. Okay, so when the vrittis die down, then you have experienced reality, which is infinite and the source of every experience and the source of every model as well. Every model, whether it's a scientific model or a spiritual model or whatever model you want to use. But how do you get there? Patanjali says 8 steps. Okay, so Yama is actually, you really understand Yama, and he's very smart in this sequence in which he gives us this knowledge. So Yama is, in modern language, we would say social intelligence. Okay? Niyama, in modern language, is emotional intelligence, your relationship with yourself. In modern language, you can use the Sanskrit, which is beautiful, by the way. And modern language doesn't do justice.
Limitations.
Has limitations. But yamas and niyamas, as described by Patanjali, are the first step. Because if you don't know how to engage with other people, and you don't know your relationship with yourself, you're off to the wrong stuff to begin with. Then Patanjali does something very simple, and it's very smart. He jumps from yama and niyama straight to asana. Why? Because everybody understands this body or thinks they understand. But everybody also thinks that the body is a physical entity, which is it's naive realism. The body is a field of awareness. Kashmir Shaivism, meditate on your body as the universe and having the nature of awareness. So your body is actually the kshetra and kshetra. Okay, and so every asana is actually a modified form of consciousness. Your body is consciousness. It perceived as a physical object, naive realism. So asana that's why asana is so popular. People go out, they want to look good, they want to lose weight, they want to stop smoking. But when they come out, they are intoxicated. And that's why, yoga is intoxicating, even the asana. It's not exercise. It's, in modern terms, it's parasympathetic nervous system and vagal stimulation, all of that. Forget all of that. But through asana, you have the opportunity of understanding the kshetra. And this kshetra is one with the kshetra that we call the universe. Because how do we experience the universe? Through vrittis. There's no other way of experiencing the universe other than through vrittis. So what we're doing is understanding through asana this and the universe as an entangled experience in consciousness. Third step. Then Patanjali immediately moves to pranayama. Now he's getting subtler. Okay, so what he says is, if you go to pranayama, there's an interface between consciousness and biology. Okay, and now you can use that interface to modulate
The tool with which you control.
the body. So now he's moved to a more subtle place. And then he moves even more subtler to what he calls pratyahara, which is normally translated as withdrawal of the senses, which is a good thing, but actually it's more than withdrawal of the senses. It is what we call interoceptive awareness. So there's perception, which is looking at the so-called outside world, which is also an illusion, but never mind. So perception is the outside world. Interoception is knowing what's happening inside. Now, we all practice interoceptive awareness. We learned it as babies. We call it toilet training. Okay, you learn how to control your bladder and your bowels. But the yogis said, why did you stop there? Why don't you control your heart rate? Why don't you control your immune system? I'm using modern terms, but why don't you learn to self-regulate your entire body? Okay. So right now, let's try this. Just close your eyes for a second and become aware of your heart. Be aware of your heartbeat right now, if you can. Just all you have to do is bring awareness there and a little stillness. And you should be able to feel your heartbeat or some sensation, some throbbing, some sensation, something. Now open your hands and just have the intention to feel your heartbeat in your hands. And you should be able to feel something. Some tingling, some throbbing, something. Now move your awareness back to your heart. Go back and forth. And now bring your awareness to your entire body, abdomen, chest. Just have the idea that that same heartbeat, that same pulsing is happening everywhere, in every cell in the body. And you can then direct that pulsing to any organ in your body and eavesdrop on it. Please open your eyes. So, I just give you a very brief glimpse of Pratyahara. But how many people felt the heartbeat here? Okay. And you could go back and forth, right? Now, with a little practice, you can do that with all the cells of your body in direct awareness. And awareness is self-regulating. So, the yogi who's adept at Pratyahara can not only regulate the heartbeat, their body temperature, they cool it, warm it, of course, pranayama can do that too. But there is nothing in your body that the yogic practice of Pratyahara cannot help you do. Now we've come to the 5 preparatory steps. These are just preparation. Because the last 3 steps are dharana, dhyan, samadhi. Dharana is this what we just did, using Pratyahara, directing awareness. Dhyan is the actual practice of meditation, mantra practice or whatever. And then samadhi is when subject object split disappears. And now we have reality. The last step. That's real. That's infinite. It's formless. Rabindranath Tagore had a beautiful poem where he said, in this playhouse of infinite forms, I got sight of the formless. And then my life was blessed. Only the formless is real. If you're not intimate with the formless, the invisible, that is you, then the visible will just be a human construct.
Can we say this is one of the things I had? Sorry, may I really request if people could put their phones on silent, please? One of the things that, and there are 2 kind of contradictory thoughts emerges from something I learned from my grandfather, who, as you know, was a priest in Kashi.
Yes.
So he told me that actually many of us don't realize the greatest tool that we have conscious control of is our body.
Absolutely.
And we are wasting so much time trying to create other tools and ignoring this. And we can actually experience everything with this. But this is in a way a little bit in contradiction to what's there in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which you would have heard, neti neti, not this, not this, not this, not this, which then went into the forms. How does one marry the two while still using this as a tool? Neti neti is a concept which says that It's a way to get into the form.
Which I quoted in the beginning, if you can see it, change it, yes,
Then it's not there.
it's not.
But then there's a truth. So then, is that a built-in contradiction?
It's a complementarity. Everything that we call a contradiction or a paradox is a complementarity in that it makes experience possible. Okay, so the mind-brain, what modern science call the mind-brain problem, there's no problem. The brain and mind are complementary activities of consciousness. Okay, so the visible and the invisible are complementary activities of a fundamental reality which is incomprehensible. That's why the last niyama is Ishwar Pranidhana. You surrender to it, okay? Because your mind will reel with bewilderment if you try to access it through a system of thought. You cannot access it. Even the system of thought that we call Vedanta, you cannot capture it, okay? Because it's a system of thought. Vedanta directs you there. Okay? But fundamental reality is infinite, incomprehensible, irreducible, unimaginable, non-conceptualizing. Non-conceptualizing. That's why Ishwar Pranidhana. And there's no contradiction. Everything that we call contradiction or paradox makes experience possible. How can you have an up without a down? How can you have birth without death or death without birth? You know, people normally think life is the opposite of death. No. Life is the continuum of birth and death. Birth and death are complementarities. Okay, it's just like up and down are complementarities, or hot and cold are complementarities, or the visible and the invisible are complementarities. So Meti is nothing and everything simultaneously.
Good. Every time one speaks to him, the mind goes a level higher. Deepak, there are some questions that that Ritika wanted to ask as well. Ritika, if you want to come up, and then post that, we'll of course open it for a few questions. Deepak has kindly offered to stay slightly longer than the time that we had budgeted, but we have to ensure that we don't misuse his hospitality, so we're going to keep that as controllable as we can. But first, Ritika, is there a
He is piping.
Yes.
There are people downstairs who can't hear you because of the echo.
Oh.
We could you have a mic in front because I just came from downstairs and they're very eager to hear you.
All right. Okay. Apologies for that.
What we can do is refer them to the live stream later.
We will be putting up a live stream also.
Later on, they can watch.
Soon.
But let's correct that.
He didn't contact them.
And there are some
Oh, sure,
associates with people.
Raj.
So just give us a sec.
Yeah, he will give one.
And there you go. Use this. There you go. Good.
Thank you for that very beautiful conversation. I think it doesn't happen every day that we have amongst us a visionary thinker like Dr. Deepak Chopra speaking to someone like Amish Tripathi, both of them really authorities in their own field and in an understanding of, ancient wisdom. And I think the conversation that we now want to have with the both of them is, how do we harness this power of ancient wisdom in the age of AI? Dr. Chopra said something very beautiful, which is that, whenever you see a paradox or a contradiction, it's a little bit of a complementarity. And if you think about it, the two themes that seems to be emerging in the world today is, people wanting to harness the power of spirituality in a world of technology. So we have spirituality and technology, whether they are contradictions or complementarities. Dr. Chopra will tell us a little bit more about that. But Dr. Chopra, you wrote a book in the June of 1993, which is now exactly 20 years back on ageless body, timeless mind. Can you tell us a little bit more in this age of AI? Can AI really help us harness, the power to achieve an ageless body and timeless mind?
Short answer is yes. Short answer is yes. But then let's see what we mean by the word ageless body and timeless mind. Yes, what is your body? Number one. If I ask you what is your body, you say this. But this air is your breath. The trees are your lungs. If they didn't breathe, you wouldn't breathe. The rivers and waters are your circulation. The earth is recycling as your body right now. And the atoms in your body, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, 96% of just those, and the remaining 4%, iron, calcium, whatever, they were made in the crucible of burning stars. 50% of the atoms in your body are from the Milky Way galaxy. We are told now that there are 2 trillion galaxies. So multiply 2 trillion galaxies, and 50% of the atoms in your body came from outside the Milky Way galaxy, according to some science right now. So right this moment, through a phenomenon called gravitational wave. So you say, this is my body. Well, no. All this is my body. The stars, the galaxies, all forms of life, 99% of your genetic information is bacterial. So what is your body? If you say this, you're limited. If you say aham brahmasmi, you're not limited. So when you understand what your body is, you realize it doesn't even exist in time. Right? Where is this experience happening right now? We prove that it's not happening here, it's not happening here. It's happening in infinite consciousness right now, which is timeless. So if you understand truly what your body is, which is already ageless and which is already timeless, and birth and death are human constructs for the starting and subsiding of vrittis. That's all it is. Take away the vrittis and you are already ageless and timeless. Now, having said that, with AI and all these technologies, we should get close to what is a health span, a lifespan, which is lived, which does mean there's no so-called physical death, because death makes life possible. Without death, there's no birth. Without birth, there's no death. So if we had no death as we normally construct it in our imagination, then we would all be doomed to eternal senility. So death makes life possible, but having said that, pay a little attention to what the great rishis said. They said, you should not die of disease, number one. Now we know today that actually less than 5% of disease is due to what we call genetic determinism, which means there are 5% of genes that are fully penetrant which guarantee disease. Now AI will help there because we will have gene editing soon. We'll be able to cut and paste genes the same way as you cut and paste your email. Okay. Read the barcode of the gene, delete the defective gene, insert the right gene. What are genes though? Now, forget modern science for the moment, but genes are the experiences of our ancestors. And they're alive in your body right now. You can't move your hands unless the genetic activity of your ancestors was not here right now. So your ancestors are here right now. But 5% of disease or less is determined. The rest is what we call epigenetic, which means the conscious living part of it. Now, if you do that, conscious living, and we have gene editing, then you should be able to live technically as long as you want and die in samadhi by choice. Been there, done that.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you.
There's a lovely line of Socrates that death may be the greatest of all human blessings.
I think Socrates, Plato, all these people were influenced by Vedanta.
Yeah.
For example, with
Yes.
innovation.
On that thought, Dr. Chopra, like you said, a lot of the great philosophers in history were influenced by Vedanta. You've written a fantastic book recently. If anyone who's not had a chance to read it, Living in the Light, Yoga for Self-Realization. This week was also the International Day of Yoga. We had wonderful celebrations at the High Commission here and at the Nehru Center. How do we harness these ancient sciences such as yoga, Ayurveda, Vedanta in the age of AI? Are they really still relevant, or it's time to kind of just forget and move forward?
If we understand Advaita, see, there are three schools of thought right now in science on the nature of reality. So one school is matter only, and matter produces everything. That's obviously not true, because we cannot even explain how matter would produce a thought or a longing or an inspiration or self-awareness. So cut that out. The second is what Descartes gave to the world, dualism. Nice separation between the scientific community and the Pope. Okay, you take care of spirituality, Mr. Pope, we take care of the material world.
Render unto Caesar.
It doesn't work. You can't even explain how do you raise your hand. This starts with a thought, and this is a physical thing, and it violates the laws of thermodynamics anyway. So dualism is out. So the only thing that's left is consciousness only. So what is this? It's a modified form of consciousness. What is this? Modified form of consciousness. What is this? As a perceptual activity, these are all modified forms of consciousness. When you see yourself in this, it's called beauty. When you see yourself in another person, it's called love. And the combination of all that is called Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Okay? So, what is AI? It's a modified form of the same consciousness that has created language. That has, one of the biggest problems in science, what's the biological basis of consciousness? If you ask a wrong question, you'll never get the right answer. There's no biological basis of consciousness because biology is an experience in consciousness. Without consciousness, there's no experience of biology. So, therefore, there's no contradiction at all. AI will help us understand the evolution of language, will help us understand how we self-regulate, and ultimately, there is nothing other than consciousness. If you just take that one rule of Advaita, one rule of Advaita, you asked this question earlier, Yatha Pinde, Tatha Brahman. As is the body, as is the atom, so is the universe. As is the human body, so is the cosmic mind. As is the human mind, the cosmic mind, the cosmic intellect, the cosmic, when we say Mano Buddhi Ahankar, we are the limited aspects of a Mano Buddhi Ahankar, which is incomprehensible and infinite. So AI will be a gift. Properly used.
Properly used.
That's very heartening to know. I think every now and then we hear about the dangers of AI, and the world keeps wondering when are we going to face extinction with AI taking over. So
those are legitimate concerns, and if extinction happens, it will be because consciousness decided. Advaita, stick to Advaita. Consciousness is the creator, destroyer, and sustainer. So there's no contradiction there.
like I said, we have two wonderful visionary thinkers with us, Amish, because we have the pleasure of you here also with Dr. Chopra.
By the way, I'm a big fan of Amish. I've read his books. I think he's an extraordinary gift to the world.
Oh wow.
I mean,
You just made my year and my life.
I've read your work and I think it's extraordinary. And you have done a great service for taking these ancient myths and giving them relevance in your lives.
Amish has written some wonderful books, which I'm sure many of you have read, just as Dr. Chopra said, where he brings ancient myths to life, right? So Amish, what do you think, from your knowledge and understanding of these ancient myths and epics, what lessons can we draw from them to really navigate the ethical dilemmas that face the world in this age of AI?
I think a key thing that strikes me, and really saying this in the presence of Dr. Chopra might be, but if I can just, a thing that strikes me is the importance of, there's this lovely Indian concept called Viveka, which is the ability to distinguish yourself and make your own choices. We are used to this paradigm over the last many centuries that someone will make a simple set of laws and all we have to do is follow that and not use our own mind and not make our own choices, and then everything will be okay. When the real world is actually far, far, far more complicated if one wants to do it. And I think what one learns from Deepak Chopra and his books, and you've influenced me deeply for many years, for decades actually, is the entire point of evolution is to learn how to use our own mind, to make our own choices. Not that God will come and tell us what to do. One of the things I really like in the Indian way is that even the gods are subject to the law of cause and effect, to the laws of karma and dharma. And all of us have to learn to evolve, learn to see the story, see what's happening, evolve, make up our own mind so that we can live consciously, so that we can become, get moksha and become part of the divine. And for me, that truly is the real journey. Don't get lost in trying to find someone who will give you solutions, who will give you, follow these 10 laws and everything will be okay. Because the universe doesn't work that way. All of us have our own individual journeys, and we have to walk it ourselves. And that's why that Viveka concept, in my mind, is one of the most critical concepts in our ancient myth.
I think what Amish has done very successfully with the myths is make them relevant to our current work. If you look at the word myth, it's actually related to the word Maya, also related to Mata, Matrika, Man, human, woman. So what is myth? Myth is our highest instinct to understand the infinite, or what we call God. Okay. These days, in the secular society, infinite is easier than God, because God everybody fights about, right? All the wars of God. So, myth is our highest. It's also, by the way, etymologically, myth is not only Mata, Matrika, it's the mother of creation. Because we cannot comprehend the infinite, our mind cannot. So we symbolize it as these gods and goddesses. Mahalakshmi, Saraswati, Shiva, name it, all these different gods and goddesses. They are the symbolic representations of the infinite which we cannot comprehend. So we symbolize it in this image, Ganesh. But then when you look at the image, you look at the symbol, it actually represents the qualities of consciousness. Okay, if I actually not worship Ganesh, but invoke Ganesh, worship is fine, but invoking these gods, whether it's these days everybody's talking law of attraction and this, that, the other, forget all of that. Invoke Mahalakshmi and you have it. Okay, but invoke Mahalakshmi through Dhyan Dharana Samadhi, then you will have infinite abundance. Okay, not through this mental exercise. Myth if we did not have myth, we would be spiritually bad. Okay, it is the only way for us to try and understand the comprehensive. Ultimately, we give up even there. Ishwar Bhagavad.
Wonderful.
There's a question.
Yeah. If there's a working mic that can be given.
I can speak, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Namaste, sir.
Loudly, I'll repeat.
Yes, yes.
The people down.
I'd like to know more about what do you think about AI and Prakriti and Vikriti. Prakriti, the constitution, and Vikriti, disbalance in the human physiology. How will you fit AI into Prakriti and Vikriti?
It's a beautiful.
And
I've never thought of that, but it's a beautiful.
I'm an
question.
Ayurveda doctor, sir. I'm your friend for the last 30, 40 years.
So Prakriti and Vikriti are also complementarities, right? You wouldn't know Vikriti if you didn't know Prakriti. So AI is not there yet. It's a super intelligent system. But I experiment with AI all the time. It has no original thought. No original. It's an algorithm, and it's a sophisticated algorithm that combines multiple languages. But it has no creativity, fundamental creativity, because fundamental creativity cannot be an algorithm. And in fact, there's a mathematical theorem for that called Gödel's theorem, which says if you really look at, there are theorems. And by the way, the best example of Gödel's theorem was the Indian mathematician Ramanujan.
Yes.
Remember, when he came to Cambridge and he was talking to the best mathematicians of his time, they knew the theorems were true, but they couldn't prove them. Okay, so they asked him, where do you get these theorems from? And Hardy, who was the most famous mathematician of his time, he was an atheist. So when he asked Ramanujan, where do you get these theorems from? He said, the goddess gives them to me. And they would roll up their eyes. What does he mean? Okay? And they still roll up their eyes. But there's a theorem in math called Gödel's theorem, which says there are theorems in math that are true that cannot be proved. Where do they come from? They come from consciousness. Okay? And there is no logic to them. But without them, you can't even do current math. Okay? So, where does AI fit in? It's not there yet, but I think AI can ultimately get to the place where it identifies the Vikriti and says, this is how you get back to the Prakriti.
I was just thinking that maybe you can just erase the Vikriti. Because you were
Erase.
talking about erase. You were talking about erasing.
Delete.
Like delete, yes.
Yeah, you should
So I
be
was
able to do
thinking,
that.
yes.
You should be able to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Who are you take, Deepak? You're the boss. Whoever you want.
We'll start with the lady in the salwar. Yes, please, ma'am. Do we
I
have a
think she would
mic?
need a microphone
Just
or just come forward.
or speak loudly.
Speak loudly, we'll repeat.
Okay, this question is for Deepak. This is regarding your book, The 7 Rules of Spiritual Success. And in that book, you say that you can breathe in a proper manner and the mind will go into the alpha state. And then it goes into a gap. And then whatever intention you put in the gap, that will materialize. And I've been trying time and again to do it.
Have you reached the beta state at least?
Yeah, the question is, she says that, in the book, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, I say that if you can get into the gap and release an intention there, then the intention will be spontaneously fulfilled. So she's quoting it correctly. And that only happens through Dhyan, Dharana, Samadhi. Okay, so the chapter in Patanjali called Vibhuti, which is about siddhis and even riddhis, it sounds very crazy. When you look at it, you say, how can all this be true? Siddhis and riddhis. Siddhis are supernormal abilities, and riddhis even control of the elements and forces of the universe, which all your gods and goddesses do so extraordinarily well. But then Patanjali also says you have to prepare for it. You have to go through, all these steps which I mentioned. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, ultimately. Now, coming to Pranayama, that's actually very simple. If you try Pranayama, if you take a breath and then you prolong the exhalation, and then you stop at the end of exhalation. Let's say you inhale to the count of 4, then you exhale to the count of 7, then pause to the count of 8, and then again breathe into the count of 4, you'll be slowing down your brainwave activity. There's a practice in pranayama where you inhale, and I do it. You inhale to the count of 6, exhale to the count of 12, pause to the count of 12, and then inhale 6 again. If you do that, that's 2 breaths a minute. And your brainwaves go to the frequency of deep sleep. So you are actually in Turiya, or we might say Turiya Kata, because you're local and non-local at the same time. Just through pranayama you can do it. And then of course Patanjali teaches how you can suspend your breath effortlessly. That's where spontaneous fulfillment of desire or Ichha Shakti works. But it's not as simple as 7 spiritual laws is an indication of how you get there. It wasn't a full explanation of what I said, but I hope this helps.
This one practical problem, if I might add, because even when I do the pranayama, the most difficult part to hold is when you exhale, and then the lungs are technically empty, but hopefully somewhere there.
Then you hold.
I cannot hold for more than 2, 3, 4 counts. It becomes too difficult. You're talking about 12.
I do it
Wow.
as part of my practice.
Because I need to
We need to build it up. Ritika knows our pranayama expert in the US.
Eddie Stern.
And so, I actually, one thing I should know, there'll come a time when you won't be able to do yoga, but you'll be able to do pranayama by TV. So focus on pranayama.
Wonderful.
That's powerful.
There's a question in this lady.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask the question. I have a very personal question on my own journey. I have read you and I follow. So I have a question for my own journey. I have read about your books and wanted to really see, or eagerly wanted to see whether you become enlightened. And I just wanted to understand. I'm following the path of Vipassana, and I'm just kind of following just to be observed and what Buddha said. And I find moments of bliss from there. And I wanted to know your view because from what I've read and what I've heard you, I think you've reached beyond that. And that's what my just wants to understand whether the right path, it is a right path or not.
Vipassana is the right path because Vipassana is called also original meaning of Vipassana is insight meditation. Insight. These days it's called mindfulness, which I don't like the word because mindfulness some people might interpret as a full mind. Vipassana is the right term, and Vipassana is actually understanding breathing. That's what you observe in Vipassana. So the Buddha's insight was absolutely true. He derived from just Vipassana observing the breath. He derived the law of impermanence. He derived the whole idea of non-grasping. So I would say Vipassana is the way, in addition to mantra practice. I really think people underestimate the value of mantra. They do not understand the seed mantra and its ability to take you to transcendence, the beach mantra. They do not understand the power of these, what we call the big Mahavakyas. They do not understand how we can actually use mantra for manifestation. So mantra combined with Vipassana, the true understanding of mantra is the key.
Just one additional question to mantra.
And the question, are you enlightened? When there is enlightenment, there is no need. So the question doesn't appear.
Can I follow up?
One,
Sorry, can I just continue? Sorry. So, then Buddha got it right.
Yes.
But then Buddha didn't follow the mantras. He did that and then he moved on, didn't he? And then he kind of stopped over there and he's given us the teaching to
Yeah,
stop
so
there.
these are schisms that I actually don't value at all, because there's already argument between Hindus and the Buddhists and the Kashmir-Shaivists and the Vedantists.
Sure.
It's irrelevant what Buddha did or did not. He pointed the way, and that's it.
So, according to you,
Yeah,
if I got
that's-
it right, it's Vipassana with mantras, not just one of them.
Yes. And
Thank you.
being aware. Just stop once in a while and ask yourself, am I aware? You don't have to go beyond that. Or become aware of the space right in front of you. This space in front of you is connected to intergalactic space. This space, Chit Akash, is your connection to the infinite. You're connected to the infinite right now. Just be aware of this. Not the idea of this. This. But in this is this, all this is happening here.
Where were you taking? No. That it got covered in this.
We'll take somebody from the front and then we'll go to the back. So do you want to ask?
Thank you. It's such a privilege to have two heroes, Abhishek and Deepak on stage together. So thank you for it. And thank you for the Nehru Center for setting this up. Abhishek, I would like to know something a bit more personal. How did your journey start? Where did spark come from for you to start this journey? We know about the books, we know about so many things, but how did your personal journey that has led you to here? So, was there something you thought was?
Sorry, if I may. At the back, essentially, his question was, how did Deepak's journey begin? Where did the spark start?
So I am a medical doctor. I went to All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And after I finished my my medical school degree, I actually went immediately to the United States. So I did not take any advanced training in India. I went to the United States where I did my internship, residency, fellowship. And then I started with fellowship and training in something called neuroendocrinology, studying the molecules of emotion. Cut a long story short, I happened to meet accidentally Maharishi Maheshwari, who everybody knows as bringing transcendental meditation to the world. And he asked me, what do you do? And I said, I'm a neuroendocrinologist. He said, what do you study? I said, I study the molecules of emotion. And he thought for a little bit and he said, they're not real. And that intrigued me. So I became a student of Maharishi, and then he exposed me to other scholars, Vedantists, people who specialize in tantric rituals, other Ayurvedic scholars and Vedantists. So I say it was the grace of the Guru.
My question is.
Okay, you there.
Hi, my name is Vidhi. I'm with this, and I'm just trying to understand that the end goal is that you just talked about that you spoke about is to reach the state of Satchitanand, I guess, or existing consciousness. Would that be my closing?
She's saying that the end goal of this would be to reach the state of Satchitananda.
Satchitanand, Kavalya, Moksha, whatever. Just call it freedom.
As somebody, as someone who's been trying to learn, the Gita and the real meaning of Satchitanand, I still sometimes, get lost in some of the words. And if I could ask you a question, maybe in just very simple language, what you think and make of reaching existence consciousness, or what's the way to reach Satchitanand, what we're talking about?
So Satchitanand, just look at the three words. Okay, Sat means existence or truth. Whatever existence is, we may have any idea, and we might all differ in our ideas of what existence is. But there's one thing we can all be sure of, and that is there is existence. Nobody will argue about that, right? There is existence. That's the truthful state. How we interpret it is a human matter and depends on our indoctrination, our conditioned mind, scientific, philosophical, whatever. But that is Sat, existence. Chit, awareness. Can you have existence without being aware of existence? Now, the science of philosophy of naive realism says, yes, you can have an objective world without awareness. Then you ask them, how? If there's an objective world without awareness, how do you know it exists? It exists. So if there is existence outside of awareness, then it's unavailable. Okay, so therefore, in our system of Vedanta, awareness of existence and existence are, let's use the word we've been using, complementarities. You can't have one without the other. Ananda is frequently translated as bliss. And I think that's not bad because bliss is the absence of vrittis. Okay, bliss is the absence of vrittis. It's vrittis that create the conditioned mind. People say that these days mental illness has become a huge issue. And everybody's trying to address mental illness through the mind, which is already here. I mean, what do you call a mind that has created nuclear weapons, climate change, extinction of species, pandemics, and war and terrorism? You call that wellness? The mind, by definition, is not well. So any mental treatment of mental illness is an oxymoron. The only treatment is Ananda, and Ananda is transcendence. So when we understand Sat, Chit, Anand, they are expressing fundamental reality, which is freedom from all constructs. Freedom from all constructs. That is the only cure, by the way, for mental illness. Is not mental, it's spiritual.
I guess a way of thinking about it is if there's a blockage, just bring a flood of water and it will clear it all up. Flood of water is spirituality. A question out there, I'm conscious of time, sir. You, and then we'll come here. Please, go ahead. How to get a six-pack? So did I hear that right? Or someone could just repeat. I'm so sorry. The sound system decided on this most important day. I'm sure I didn't hear that.
How to get a six-pack and maintain it?
How to get a six-pack and maintain it for life? I obviously cannot answer that. Deepak said he doesn't even understand the question. Sorry.
We'll take another one right at the back so that people there.
And you're going to really, I'm really sorry about the mics not working. If you could just.
Thank you so much for taking my question. Namaste to you all. If consciousness is perceived as the most fundamental and intrinsic feature of the soul, a perennial activity of the soul and cannot exist without the soul, would you say that each soul is separate to another or part of one large soul?
So the question is each soul
A separate
separate entity or is it
Connected.
part? Both true. Okay, so complementarities again. You know, there's a poem of Rumi which says, you're not just a drop of the ocean, you're also the ocean in the drop. Okay, so the drop appears separate, but it is universal. You appear separate because of your vasanas and sanskaras and your so-called karma, but in reality, you're not separate.
So,
I think
so
I
that,
understand how far you take it.
so would that make consciousness very individual and different in souls, as not only humans but also animals, plants, natural elements such as air, water, and fire, and earth have potentially infinite consciousness?
Everything is a modified form of consciousness, so everything is a finite expression of the infinite. Everything. There are innumerable minds, but there's only one consciousness. There are innumerable modes of knowing, but there's only one consciousness. They have all differentiated from that one consciousness. So you can have the experience of individuality while knowing at the same time that you're universal. That's called Turiya Tattva. So, you know, when you look at the stages of development in consciousness, there's what we call Jagrit Chetna, which is the lucid dream, the vivid now. There's Swapna Chetna, there is Sushupti Chetna, and there's Turiya. But then there's something beyond Turiya, Turiya Tattva, which is non-local and local at the same time. And then there's something called Bhagavad Chetna, where you see non-locality in the object of the experience. And then there's Brahmi Chetna. So your experience of what you call reality is different in different stages of consciousness.
We're going to just have two more
Two more,
questions and then we have to end. So you, sir, with the shades, just because I like the shades. And then,
I know that how far you take it.
sorry, who's speaking?
Can you stand
Sorry,
up, please?
please, sir, if you can just stand up.
So my question is, the current pandemic that we're going through is a mental health crisis, especially in children. And when we speak to a lot of children, they're rejecting things like meditation, yoga, spirituality, the traditional kind of aspects of Indian culture. So my question to you is, what is your advice and guidance for the next generation, for the children who don't understand these very significant cultural concepts from India, but just in very plain, simple language? They've never meditated, they've never done yoga, they don't understand Vedanta. What is your advice to them?
So it's a very important question because we are facing a pandemic of not only mental distress, but suicide. Right now, every 40 seconds in the world, somebody is dying from suicide. Suicide has become the second most common cause of death in teens in the West. In India, by the way, suicide is also pandemic, but it's the elderly who don't want to depend on their children for different reasons. But suicide is the real pandemic in the world right now. And it is because of dissociation. We've confused ourselves with our selfies. You know, basically everybody identifies with their selfie, not with their self. So, you know, our foundation, which is a non-profit, please check it out, www.choprafoundation.org. We have a program there called Never Alone. And you can check that independently. It's called neveralone.love. And we use AI, actually, an emotional AI to talk to young people who are depressed or who are struggling with mental distress. And we are creating online and offline communities with AI for suicide prevention and mental distress. So what this AI does is it becomes a friend with these teens and asks them questions like, what did you have for dinner last night? Did you go for a walk? Did your boyfriend or girlfriend call you back? And, you know, personal questions. And the teams are very comfortable talking to this AI because they don't feel any judgments. They don't feel any judgment. So right now, the AI has intervened in 6,000 suicide ideations and is having 20 million conversations text simultaneously. And what we are creating is online and offline communities, to put it very simply, of Seva, Sangha, and Sadhana. So Seva is service, volunteer. Sadhana is giving them a practice, meditation, but slowly. Mindfulness, awareness, body awareness, vipassana, even mantra. And then Sangha, because Sangha is very important. Without Sangha, you don't have a support system. And we call it AI, we call it Never Alone, but it's based on 4 principles: attention, deep listening; affection, deep caring; appreciation, deep gratitude; and total acceptance of everybody as they are. And if we can create these sanghas, then we are actually using the modern version of what Indian philosophy was. We want to change the world, seva, sangha, and sadhana, or what the Buddha said. Take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the sangha, take refuge in the dharma. And we can use technology to do that.
Last question here. Is that it?
Can you please explain what is Anand and how can you get it?
I didn't understand the question.
What is Anand and how can you get it?
What is Anand and how do you get it?
Last question.
The question was, what is Anand and how do you get it?
Anand is the absence of mind. And how do you get it? Transcend the mind.
Okay, should we?
That's the last one.
Last one.
Thank you for a wonderful talk. I just wondered, with all your knowledge and expertise and wisdom, how do you briefly live each day?
How do I briefly live each day?
How do you live each day? Just briefly.
Her question was that with all Deepak's knowledge
What
and
do you
wisdom,
do?
how does he live each day?
What do you do?
I sleep latest by 10 o'clock. I wake up latest by 6. Sometimes I sleep earlier and wake up by 4. I have a 3-hour practice in the morning of meditation and yoga and pranayama. And before I sleep at night, I do yoga nidra. And in between, I do what needs to be done.
If I may request, if you could just remain seated, we will guide Deepak out, and then of course all of you will be guided out. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.